Start in a few minutes. Late, but a warm welcome to everybody. Good afternoon, all. So this webinar is on understanding dementia. We're pleased to partner with Theresa McNally, part of Vida Healthcare, and I'm sure we'll find this very informative and interesting as we've heard Theresa before. So just a little bit about ourselves. Don't worry, for those of you that do know me, it'll be short, but for those that don't know, my name's George and I'm calling from Yorkshire Care Equipment. Our mission is to enhance quality of life, so I'm sure that really links with everything that particularly you in the care industry do, closely aligned to that. And we've been established 50 years. It's our 50th birthday this year, which is exciting. And we particularly specialise in the specialist seating, but we provide equipment for hospitals, patients in hospitals and nursing homes, care homes. So I thought I'd just run through briefly on our products, touching on the chairs first of all, which you'll notice are all part of the Lento family. So thinking particularly with patients with dementia, maybe late dementia, and then maybe hoisted, something like the Lento care chair or the little Lento care chair may be suitable. Or if somebody's still mobile, maybe early onset dementia, it might be that the rise and recline chair is more suited to their case. These are all adjustable in size very easily to suit all the different heights and weights of patients. So moving on, a little bit more specialist, more designed for the acute industry, for hospitals. So we've got the bariatric range for the larger patients, but we've also got some more specialist chairs that can be used with the likes of the Arjo Sara Steady, as you see there in the middle, and then something on the right hand side along the lines of the Flowtech hospital chair, which many of you may remember, which we designed, called the ProSpec. Another chair which really helps with activities, so particularly those that are less mobile, so such as ironing, washing, kitchen activities and so on, is one called the Vela chair, which is a very adjustable activity chair. And then lastly, and perhaps particularly relevant for the dementia patients, is the falls devices which we have. So there's one shown with a handle on the left, and then another looking very similar in the middle, which is got a remote control. So these will lift a fallen patient from the floor. Very quiet devices, so it will cause minimal disruption and disturbance for the patient. And then over on the right is one of our newest products, which is called the Hip Guard. And this is a very discreet belt which is worn, and it activates, blows up an airbag when it detects a fall. So we'd know, particularly with dementia patients, falls can be more prevalent with them. So enough from me. And again, a warm welcome to Theresa. Theresa is the Creative Practice Manager at Vida Healthcare. We've been working with Vida Healthcare now for a number of years. Very impressed with what they do. I myself think they're leaders in the dementia care. So over to you, Theresa. Looking forward to it.
Lovely. So you can hear me? I hope that, yeah, lovely. Fantastic. Right, I'm just doing that kind of obligatory pressing the last thing on my screen, and then here I am. Thank you. This is lovely. This is really nice to be asked because, yeah, as you say, we have a really lovely relationship with yourself, and we have a lot of those products, and the razor chair especially is amazing. We've never got over how great that is. It really is fantastic. So I'm Theresa, and I'm a mental health nurse. I've worked with Vida from the beginning. I'm very fortunate that I have. First as a nurse, and then a role that Vida created for me, which is not something that happens every day. And my title is Creative Practice Manager, which is it's quite a big role, I guess, which isn't always described in that, but creative practice, creative thinking, thinking differently, having different approaches, because dementia is an unusual set of circumstances that people find themselves in, really, and we need to have approaches that are non-standard, because everyone who's living with dementia is as unique as human beings are. So I guess I'm employed to think differently, which is good for me because I live with dyslexia, which means that I can not think differently. I kind of, it's very interesting because I really struggled to get in onto the Zoom because I do things like that terrify me, but talking about something that I love and I feel very strongly about is fine. So, you know, I'm sure there's many other people among the group who have dyslexia and can relate to that. But so I have this role that means that I'm employed to be in the world with people who are living with dementia to try and understand what the world looks like from them, from their point of view. I sometimes feel I'm a bit like Kate Adie from Our Own Correspondent on Radio 4, that I kind of spent time intensely.
Hi, like that after strong financial results.
Oh, there's just a little bit of reverb back there, sorry. I spend quite time being very intensely involved with people and then come and report back about what that world is like and how we can find ways in. So I teach new staff about dementia. I run family groups and I also work with our residents therapeutically. I'm also a musician and a puppeteer. Again, there's not many jobs that you can do all of your favourite things. So I use music to relate to people, and I also use puppetry, which is a way of sharing this kind of magical world together. It's really very lovely, and might talk about some of the examples of that as we go on. So a lot of the work I find myself doing, a lot of the things I find myself talking about is to get over some of the misconceptions of dementia, because I've done a lot of different, attended training and read a lot of different things about dementia, and sometimes we paint this picture of people that just doesn't give them a chance, and it upsets me when I see people being represented in a really poor way. And I think that a lot of what we see when someone is living with dementia is a result of the environment and the relationship. So I've made so I'm not going to use PowerPoint. I'm going to just be talking because that's kind of my style. So if that's how I'm going to be, I hope that's okay with everyone. And then hopefully at the end we can have more of a chat between us. So I'll just go through what I've kind of promised people I would talk about in the bullet points. So I'm sure that a lot of people here are aware that dementia is a cognitive disability. It's a damage to the brain through illness or trauma. And it's a progressive condition that affects so many parts of someone's communication, their vision, language, ability to judge, your perception of the space around you, sometimes knowing where you finish and someone else begins. There is lots of different kinds of dementia, from Alzheimer's, which is the most common form of dementia, through vascular dementia, Lewy bodies with Parkinson's, through to some of the rarer types of dementia like semantic dementia, which is often described as a dementia of language. So not just forgetting language, but forgetting how we use language and what language represents, and also what things are. So forgetting the name of things, but also what things are, what objects are. There is things like PCA, which is a rarer dementia which affects vision. so that what someone sees is very different to what we see. So things might be on their side or upside down. And there's been some quite interesting research asking people to paint what they see. And so that gives us an idea of what the viewpoint is like for someone. Now, we'll never completely know what dementia is like for someone, but some of those kind of creative research can be really interesting. Then there's things like Huntington's, which also affects people physically, that can lead to dementia. Korsakoff's, which is an alcohol-induced dementia. It's an interesting one, really, because that is progressive as long as the person is continuing to drink. But when someone stops drinking, and it might not progress on its own, because it's essentially someone's poisoned their brain. And then we have to consider that around something like Korsakoff's, where someone has an addiction, a long-standing addiction, the world around them, they may be living in chaotic, a very chaotic place, and serving their primary kind of need, which would be for alcohol. So what we find when people move to us who have that diagnosis, once they can be very unwell, they can be experiencing delirium as well. And once they come to us and they've got meals and they've got warmth and they've got people around them and good hydration, that something of that person emerges, we get a truer picture. And we've actually had someone who didn't need the level of care we were offering her, and she moved to a less supported environment, which is amazing, because I guess we were part of her rehabilitation, really. Now that doesn't happen very often. Dementia is a progressive condition that causes people to be frail, eventually so frail that they will usually end their life with us. So part of our work, a lot of our work, is palliative care as well. I think if you are very interested in the physiology of dementia, I would say that there are books and there are websites and more medical ways of describing that to you than I can. So my work really isn't about, it's very much about having an awareness of that, but that isn't where my work is rooted. My work is more rooted in what is it like. So if my vision is affected, what does that do to me? How does that change the environment? And when someone is living with dementia, the world changes. Now, dementia doesn't change. Monday's still Monday. I still have 3 children. I still got a dog. All that is still there. But my perception of the world is something that changes. So my perception of the world, so I'm living in a very different place. My relationships have all changed. So this is more about us having a social, environmental, behavioural understanding of dementia rather than a medical one. So medicine looks for cures. It looks for a different kind of treatment. For me, the treatment is us. We are the medicine. So I just want to talk a little bit about how the world might change. So my memory is probably the primary thing that will be affected, not with all dementias, especially some of the rarer forms of dementia. Memory is quite intact, but generally the people who we work with and people in the viewers might be working with are memory. So we have our short-term memory, which is a bit like our shopping basket. If you're shopping online, you've got your shopping basket and you go to check out and everything is in there. So if I'm living with dementia, my shopping basket is going to be empty when I go to check out, even though I've gone through all of those aisles and put all of that stuff in. So everything that's happened today, really, my brain hasn't taken a reliable photograph of that. I'm seeing there's lots of little questions popping up, which we're going to be looking at the end. They're very interesting things that are coming up. So I get the end of my day, I might have very fragmented photographs. I do like a good metaphor. I get my metaphors muddled up, so forgive me. So my photograph album at the end of the day might be very fragmented. So you might take from today that they had something to do with Scotland because you're listening to a Scottish person, but you can't remember anything else. So our brain fills in the gaps. That's what we do. We make up stories. We make up stories to fill in the gaps. We do it all the time. So you might try to make sense of why you have got a pair of shoes on that you don't recognise, and you might make up the story of, I've been to Scotland and I bought these new shoes. Now, that is so far from what has actually happened, and other people around you will know that, but you're trying to make sense of what you've got in your head for today's memories. So that is going to be a huge disability in your life, because how can you keep track of things? How can you keep track of if you've eaten? Have you gone out? Where did that come from? Why is there food on my table there? Who's this person in my house? Why? What is the story? What is the story here? And what is my role? Then your long-term memory, which is the part of our brain that's, deep-seated memories that goes back as long as we've been alive, really. A lot of those memories remain very intact, but what we also know that is that the most recent memories begin to fade. So it's a bit like we've got more and more space between now and the past. So my most recent memory might be 20 years ago. So if my yesterday is 20 years ago, then I'm looking for everything about 20 years ago. For instance, I was at university. Well, I've got an assignment to put in, and where's my uniform for my placement, and where's my flatmate? I should have a flatmate here. So if we were to open our lives at any page, we would remember everything that happened around that time. So people find themselves in a very strange alien environment and are trying to make sense of that, and are trying to and what we see is the emotional reaction, because we know that the part of the brain that affects emotion is very intact. So someone still has an emotional reaction. So I'm having an emotional reaction to my perception of something, and it's very real to me. And what dementia isn't amnesia. So someone isn't going to snap out of it, and no matter how many times we tell someone, we can't pull someone into our reality. So the consequences of the world I find myself living in is what I'm reacting to. So that will be fear and panic and anxiety and maybe anger, frequently anger. What the heck's going on? Where is my little boy? Where is my husband? And over the years, people living with dementia have been really misunderstood, and we have believed that dementia makes you angry, dementia makes you violent, it makes you hit people, it makes you shout, it makes you swear, but actually panic makes you stressed. Thinking that your children have been taken away from you makes you angry. People calling you the wrong name, or people who shouldn't be in your house and being in your house makes you scared. So this is a much to approach dementia in this way means that we can understand people, and if we can understand people, we can give them a better chance of supporting them. And the first thing we need to do when we are working with people who are living with dementia is to be real to what the situation is, and to move away from that medical model, because the medical model can't really do an awful lot for people living with dementia. And that's not to not give people hope. Dementia might not be the only thing someone has, and medicine may be wonderful for other conditions, but we know that there are some kinds of dementias that respond well to some medication for that individual person. That really is as far as we've come, but we've come far with understanding that the environment, the relationships is as much part of dementia as the brain damage. So in a way, that's the kind of the good news, that we can influence that. In fact, we influence so much that someone living with dementia is relying on us to influence their world, to make it good, and to, you know, we're the kind of prosthetic emotional response. That's what we have to be. That's why we are the equipment. Now, you know, we do training and all sorts of stuff here with equipment hoists and all sorts of wonderful stuff to get from Yorkshire Care. But in terms of emotional work, there isn't a piece of equipment that you can use. It's us. It's our thinking differently. That's the creative approach. That's the creativity. We know that the world of art and music can give us a lot more than medicine. Medicine can kind of, you know, in a lot of my experience of not great stuff, medicine is used for sedation, and it's a lazy option, but it's what the approach that I'm talking about, the stuff that I teach, what I mentor and coach people in, is harder, because you have to dig deep inside yourself. When you're working emotionally with people, you need to be tuned into your own emotions, and you might not have to do that in other areas of healthcare. We work with lots of students. We have an academy at Vida, and I've been working with medical students, paramedic students, so many different speech and language therapy. It's exciting, the people we work with, but I've found myself having quite a lot of debate with some of those students who come from a very medical place, especially the medical students, who would say, you don't have to look at inwards when you're working. It's about what you do. It's about that procedure. But in this world, it's not just what you do, it's who's doing it. It's an awful lot about what we bring. And I know this is my experience. This is what I see working. This is the stuff that I do every day. We have to be able to turn situations round. We have to understand that someone else is seeing something very different, and logic doesn't work. We can't pull someone back into our world. We have to get into someone else's world, and that is a skilled thing, but it's also skilled using hoists and things like that, but people learn that. And so my invitation is that people practice that and get better at that and have a bit of confidence, because I think that one of the things about working in dementia care is that you have to kind of put yourself out there a little bit and do things that scare you. And sometimes people who come to work with us and they're very shy and they're lovely people and they're very nice and want to be kind and help people, and then they have someone shouting in the face, and because the person is misunderstanding the situation, and it's very hard when someone is shouting in your face. And if we were outside and someone came up and called you all sorts of awful things, it would be okay for us to say, don't speak to me like that. But here in this world, the rules are completely different. And we would never say, you don't come to work to get spoken to like that. You do. In this level of specialist care, you do. I would rather someone was speaking to me like that than someone else, because I can take that, and that's what we should be able to do in this world as people who are working in the world of dementia care. So someone is shouting at me, I need to think, what do they need from me? What is the person they're looking for? So an angry person is looking not for another angry person. They're not looking at someone that needs to have their point of view put across, because in that point, I'm passive. I have to be the pacifier. So I apologise for, over the years, I've apologised for hundreds of things. I have no idea what I've ever done. But the first thing that I usually will do if someone is angry with me is say, I'm so sorry. And the thing about that is you have to mean it. You have to embody that. You have to embody what you're saying. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll really try not to do that again. I have no idea what I've done. The person might continue to shout, yeah, but you are. I know I get it wrong. I get it wrong. And I have, we're having, and this isn't about me lying, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but this is just about me feeling my way. You have to really feel your way, and when we often will meet someone, we're there, and what I'm trying to do is find that way of just being together, and then let me try and bring you to your rescue. And there's a lot of rescuing, and in that situation, if someone is furious with me, I'm going to go and try and rescue them. And that, again, that's not easy stuff, and people often want a word or a phrase that they can use, and it's about the time. And I think when people say we haven't got time for that, my argument is often if someone falls, you find the time. Someone falls on the floor, we don't step over them and think we haven't got time for this. You have to put that time in. And it's maybe easier because you can do procedures, take someone's obs, check them out, see if they're hurt. But when it comes to emotions, just naturally, we are a bit scared about that. We're scared about getting into deep emotion. In this world, you need to become more comfortable about getting into deep emotion, because that's where you meet people. That's the point that you're going to be meeting people. So this alternative, different reality that people find themselves in, it's that point that we're on the edge of that's a very difficult thing. We have to remember someone living with dementia has got a very small view of the world, and we have got a much bigger view. We know why someone is living in a different place now. We know why someone's car keys are not there. We know why someone's child is not there. We see the big picture, but it's not going to be of any benefit to that person. It depends where someone is in their journey, and maybe in the earlier parts of someone's journey, someone might be able to be brought back, but eventually people will lose that insight and capacity to understand that. So we would never rely on the logic of you're 19, you're in a care home and you've got dementia. That is as ridiculous as me saying that to you, because you know that you're not 19 in a care home, and unless you are actually watching this from somewhere. But if someone were to tell you something that was so different from your belief, you just couldn't accept that. So logic and that kind of blunt truth to someone living with dementia it's fairly useless, and all it's going to do is confuse them. So we have to, again, it's about finding that other, what is it that what do you need me to be? That's my rule of thumb. When I meet someone, I'm not thinking, what kind of dementia do you have? That's not important. I'm thinking about what emotional state are you in? I'm trying to identify where you are, what emotional state you're in, and what do you need from me. If you're angry, you need me to be passive. If you're sad, you need me to wrap my arms around you. You're confused, you need me to sit with you through that confusion. A lot of what we see is people in a different reality experiencing loss. People are here on their own without their families. Their families may visit frequently, but they are on their own and often will search. People are looking for meaning. People are looking to make sense of this. How do I make sense of this? I'll ask someone. Who will I ask? My husband, my child, my mother. It makes sense that people would be looking for their attachment the people who have always helped them make sense. It's often the mother figure, because the mother figure is so deep in our life, and the mother figure makes it all better. So if I am lost and scared, then I'm going to be looking to seek someone who's going to make it better. It's my mum. So we often will have someone in a high emotional state, very highly emotionally charged, asking for their mother. I can't find my mum, I don't know where she is. Really, really, off the scale emotion. And firstly, we need to realise that that's very difficult. We don't generally come across people in our everyday life that are so emotionally in that place. That's hard to see. That person's got adrenaline pumping through their body. Then we have adrenaline pumping through our body, because we often are a bit scared, because wow, this is big, I don't know what to do, I know that I can't make this better. And then we start saying daft things like, I seen her earlier, she was up the road, or she's on her way here, or she's just left. Now, we're very careful about telling lies like that. If you're going to tell a lie, you need to know everything about that person. Because as soon as you commit yourself to something, that person, it might ask you follow-up questions. So, for example, your mother's just rang. My mum's dead. How could she have rang? She's in her car. My mum doesn't drive. So you can commit yourself. You need to be very careful. Or if someone is looking for a husband, if you see my husband, is my husband anywhere? You might assume she loves him and she's missing him. He might have come home and beat her black and blue every night. So when you say, yeah, he's on his way, that might be the absolute worst thing. So we don't get into the content and we're trying to look for solutions, but it's more about stepping out of that. What would it be like to not be able to find your mum? What would it be like to have lost your child? So we have to give a response that would be of use. And often, again, it's that using our emotions. How awful. Oh my gosh, you can't find your mum. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I tell you what, can I stay with you? I'm really careful that I'm not saying anything that is going to commit me, but I know in that person's highly charged emotional state, they're going to hear what is going to help them. So I'm not going to promise I'm going to help you find your child, but I'm going to say, I'm not doing anything just now. Let me stay with you, because you can't go through this on your own. And that person has now got an attachment, which is probably what they were looking for. And it's not an instant thing. It's not magical recipes here. Again, you have to put in the time and you have to mean it. You have to have emotional commitment, which is why this is not easy work. That's what I'm going to say to people, that this is stuff that you have to tune back in with yourself. And a lot of us aren't comfortable with emotion. And so working in dementia care is as much about working with ourselves. You go backwards before you can go forwards in this work. And that's why if there's professionals that I'm speaking to, then you need somewhere to reflect, somewhere to go and have a reflection about this. And we're very much into encouraging people to have a safe space to be honest, because when you're working with people so deeply, you need a place to just let that go. Because if you don't, that'll come out in other places. You need a place to let it go so that you can then be clear to go back out. And if you are working personally, then again, you need a place. And I'd be the first person to say that there is not enough support for families in any way. We are relying on families to do the job of 10 people. There's whole teams in care homes doing what people are doing on their own in the community, and I'm sure that everybody would agree with that. I'm just going to have a little time check. It's 22. We're flowing in here. I hope I'm on the right track for you. I hope that this is the kind of stuff that's of use to people. I do hope so. I also, when I'm working with staff, I talk about how you find your own skill, your own way of working. Sometimes I'll say finding your own superpower, that because a lot of my teaching is it's about giving people permission. It's permission to be you, permission to work in whatever way you want. Now I'm someone that is I like kind of being out there. I'm quite confident. I like music and singing, and as I say, puppetry. I can. My superpower, I would say that I'm very good at being in the moment. Improv. I'm very good at just pulling things out of the hat. Some people, their superpowers that they are just that lovely, gentle, gorgeous, quiet person that we all need to have in our lives too. Other people are great organizers, you know, that we've all got something that we can contribute. It's not, as I say, the medical model would offer something that is very specific, but if I was to go into one of our houses now, I have no idea who I would meet, where they would be in their minds, what they would want from me. But I would find it because I believe that I will find it. So to have confidence that we'll find it together. And good dementia care should look very strange. That's what I will say. You will see the strangest things, and I think again, don't worry about should I do this? Is this okay? My rule of thumb is it going to harm that person? Is it going to put them at risk of any kind of danger? No. Then if the answer is no, anything goes. I watched a very skilled young woman sitting underneath a table with a man who was sitting underneath the table, feeding him his dinner the other day, helping him have his lunch. Because this man used to be a joiner, he spent an awful lot of time on the floor. He's full of business, he's full of work, he's checking, he's banging, he's not an older man in a care home. He's a young, fit, bright man back in that place that he's working hard. He's not stopping for lunch. He doesn't need, in his head, he doesn't need his lunch. He's not in that place. And her purpose in that moment was not about social conformity. It wasn't about, I need to get him to sit at a table and look like everything is normal. It was about nutrition. That was the primary goal, nutrition. I got under the table with him. It was beautiful. So we do a lot of that. That looks strange. I've done all sorts of things in the past to get onto the same page. Just out the top of my head, I'm thinking of a one time that we had a woman who was in one of our care homes, and she was very distressed. She was banging her wheelchair against the wall, and the staff were very concerned she was going to fall, and they were panicking a bit. So I came into this situation, and I could see she was there was a risk that she might fall, but I didn't have that panic. So what I asked them to do, and this was wonderful because I've worked with a very good staff team. They were very receptive to what I'd done, and they're used to me asking for all sorts of strange stuff. So I said to them very quickly, go and get me a wheelchair. They brought this wheelchair. Probably think, what on earth is she going to be doing here? So I sat in the wheelchair and I started banging against the wall with her. And then she sort of, it's almost like you're breaking that kind of moment she's having, and she was looking at me and I said, I'm rubbish at this, you're so much better at this. And what I'm doing is making it into a game that she could win. So I was saying to her, you need to teach me how to do this. And she was a bit cross with me to begin with, but then you have to put in the time, wait for that kind of connection to be made. She started sort of showing me that she was good, and then she kind of wheeled. She was just moving herself along with her feet. She wheeled herself along. Then I was kind of behind her. Then she kind of waited for me, let me go in front of her. Then she went with her. I mean, this was all happening very, very slowly, but I'm paying attention, and it might look random. It might look like I'm even having fun at her expense, but I'm not. It's so very different from that, because I'm aware that although I'm putting her in control, I'm ultimately in control. So I know what the goal is. The goal is that she's not going to be in any harm. She's not going to be risky that she might tip back. So we're together, and we kind of almost get into this competition that she wins, and we get to the end of the hallway, and I say, that was wonderful, that was fantastic. I'm exhausted. Do you know, I think that we can order tea and cake here. I don't know if you do, but we can order tea and cake, and a staff member just comes out of round the corner at that moment. I say, can we order 2 cups of tea and some cake, please? The staff member gets where I'm coming from. Yes, that's fine. Brings us a tray, and we sit and have this tea. The person's distresses them because they've had their needs met, their needs for achievement, their needs for control, their needs for to be recognised, because that's all that anything is about. Any distress is about us feeling that our needs aren't being met. That's it's looking at dementia from a different angle. It's not about, this is angry, aggressive people that are trying to give us a terrible day. This is about people who are scared, who happen to be torn away from everything they've ever known, everything that made sense, everything they love, everything they worked for. It's all gone. They've been torn away from it and put in an environment that probably seems the strangest and most bizarre, because as much as our care homes are beautiful and the standard is wonderful, the last thing probably that someone who's living in a really different reality needs is other people who are all behaving strangely too. So our residents need us. They move towards us who seem to be behaving in a way that's more rational. So it's what works for one part is not the best for another part. But again, that's the stuff that you can only see that small part, but we understand that specialist care is offered in as a whole. Having another 10, so it's nearly 10 to. So shall I stop speaking for a little bit and see if there's anything that you want me, any questions you want me to answer? Because I'm from Glasgow as well. I'll just talk and talk and talk for stop there.
No, that really is fantastic, Theresa. There's lots and lots of questions and comments which are coming. That's excellent. So if you're okay, we'll jump straight into those, and there's quite a number of comments here. I'll just scroll down. So just bear with me. So first one or two are product related questions which I'll seek to address. So Sally, you asked whether they do a razor with a head support. They do. They've just brought out a headrest to be used in conjunction with it, which works really well. And then Alice, you asked whether the products are available in the Republic of Ireland. Yes, we do sell quite a few of our products over to Ireland, so that's no problem at all. One for you here, Theresa. So from Alison, what is your view of virtual trains for people with dementia?
Yeah, I've saw these. I love stuff like that. I think that is creative, and creativity is the medicine. It really is. Some people will react well to that. Other people won't. It's about, I love trying things. My rule is, let's try it, because someone will get something from that. And I, you know, as a puppeteer, that world of pretend, that world of imagination, that world of creating an environment is very beautiful. And some people will believe that they're there. Other people will remove themselves and know that actually this is like a virtual thing. But it's the creative world, and I love it. Yeah.
That's great, thank you. And then question from Amanda here. Can a person recover from Korsakoff's?
So Korsakoff's is the dementia that there is hope with that. There is a kind of recovery, because it's not like a kind of organic dementia. It's a poison. It's, so, you know, alcohol poisoned our brain, didn't it? So and people call that Saturday night, but long-term use poisons your brain. So when you stop drinking and you then have got better nutrition. So this is what we see. We see a lot of recovery. We see people come to us because they're very unwell because of the environment they've been living in and the chaos, and they're probably not eating well or drinking, so they're dehydrated. They're often, the mental health isn't good. So we do see certainly a recovery, and if someone continues to live well, they can do well. As I say, this woman who lived with us and moved on to somewhere else, she didn't need what we were the intensity of what we were offering her. So yeah, there's hope there.
That's great. And a question from Fran. Do you think a daily set routine is very important for somebody with dementia?
I think everyone is different. I think that in maybe in the earlier part of someone's journey, there's a familiarity in that and knowing what you're doing. Everyone is different, and sometimes that daily routine becomes about us, having expectations of that person. For me, dementia is more like a dance, that the steps change every day and that we have to learn the new steps. But certainly when people are living at home, a routine can be really good for both people because it has to be okay for the carer too. So that trip to the supermarket or that trip to the cafe each day can be really nice to have those little markers that are something to look forward to as well. So I think that there's a space for that too, absolutely. It's knowing when that daily routine is not working and actually that person is being kind of pulled to do something that they can't do anymore. I think that it's known, reading when it's not okay anymore.
That's great. That's very helpful. There's also some, if it's okay, going to read these out as well, not necessarily questions, but experiences, because I think they're key to share. So Pat, but my husband has just passed away with motor neurone, and this apparently caused his dementia changes. It was like living in a alternative reality with him. He believed everything he saw on TV, so I had to censor his viewing. This might not be seen as a problem to carers.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that as well. I think you're right about censoring the view, and I think that's the part that we can control, isn't it? If there's something that we can control that can support that person, I think that was the right thing to do.
Yeah. And a question here from Hazel. When patients have good days and bad days, is it normal to have good and bad phases that last for days, stroke week, rather than fluctuating on a daily basis?
I think that everything, if it happens, it's normal. I think that we see that we fluctuate from week to week, day to day. All sorts of things affect that, from the weather, from maybe the stress of other people around, maybe the food that someone's eating, if someone's constipated for a whole week, as people can be. So I would say again, it's just us trying to move with that person, and everyone's dementia will affect them differently, and it's kind of, the more we get to know someone and we get to know their kind of pattern, and pay attention to that. So.
And then a point from Jill here. One thing we as people need to try and do is ditch the term, do you remember? We ask it all the time in life, but for people with dementia, it can be exhausting trying to remember what they can't. Better to talk about what they can. I find that carers ask a person what they did in a way to confirm the good experiences they have engaged. A person may have had, but living in the moment can be joyous. I enjoyed the most wonderful and meaningful moments with my mum by entering her world.
That's beautiful, and I would say about that, we often do, and sometimes we think that it's a good way of starting the conversation because it can be a big space, but I think that opinions can be better. We do something called cognitive stimulation therapy, which is about opinions. What do you think of this? What do you think? I'll just randomly, because I do a lot of improv, off the top of my head, I might say to someone, I've got a question for you, and I'm trying to very quickly think what it's going to be. Do you think my ears stick out? Do you think my hair's nice like that? Because it's in the moment. You can't get that wrong. That's kind of the worst I'll get is like, don't ask me such a silly question. But again, that's a something. So I think opinions can be good. Do you like summer or winter? Or look at pictures. You know, get a picture of 10 pairs of shoes. Which one would you wear if you were going to a wedding? You know, those kind of things can be so much easier to fill that space that can be quite big sometimes, and we then start to go down, if you remember this, what did you used to do? That might be gone, but what do you think of these pictures can be so much better.
That's really helpful. Question from Demetrita here. Is it important to collaborate with patient family when helping dementia patients?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. We've got that privilege of being able to be in that person's world with them, but we ultimately weren't supposed to be invited. That was not part of the plan, that we would invite professional people in, and we have to be so kind of honoured to be there, and we can't do anything without families' input, because we're conduits between you and the family. That's what we should be seeing ourselves as. That person doesn't belong to us now. We have no right to take over that person's life. Circumstances say we have to, but collaboration with family is so important. Absolutely. We now, obviously COVID has changed things, but we used to say, this is your home, come in, join on, day or night, just be around here. You know, things have changed a little bit with that, but that mindset, that is still there.
That's great. And then question from Karen here. Do you think the dementia bus helps staff understand more, and should it be part of the training?
I've seen this. I think again, it's a wonderful aid to understanding. Dementia bus, people who not aware of that, it's a kind of interactive environmental kind of place that people can go in a bus. It's a training tool to see what a very distorted other reality would be like for someone, and any of those kinds of exercises that can jolt us. And everyone learns in different ways, and for some people that immersion in a different reality is really important. So I think that the more anything that is going to help us just become closer to people living with dementia has got to be good.
That's great. And one or two situational ones here. So a lady keeps on asking why her son left her here, but we are encouraging her by telling her that she has friends here. She still asks about her son and is very anxious and sad. What can we do to help her more?
That's hard, isn't it? And it's lovely that you're going from, you've got friends here, and it's off the top of my head, that's quite a difficult one to just think of. I guess my stuff is about connecting with them, and sometimes it's not about one answer, it's about saying, I'm really sorry, no, that must be awful, he's not here. And, you know, and maybe if you've got a son yourself, I miss my son. And but sometimes when someone is talking about a son, it might be a member of staff. You know, we have people who they call members of staff mum, because that's who they have. So maybe even to establish, is it about our son, or have you got a lovely member of staff that she thinks is her son? You know, again, kind of, that's just an off the top of my head.
That's really helpful. Just scroll down for a few more.
I've just seen someone ask them about puppetry again. We could talk all day about that, and we could do something else on puppetry. I'm not inviting myself, I am inviting myself, but we could do something else about puppetry and music, because there's questions about music. So that might be for another time, because I really will talk all day if you get me on puppetry.
And there's another question about family memory books to help people with dementia find their place.
They can be beautiful, they really can. And I think sometimes, to prepare, I think we should all be trying to prepare some kind of memory books for ourselves and our loved ones, because what we find is by the time people get to us, because we're a specialist care home, we might be the second or third care home people come to. Families are often so traumatized, so weary, so burnt out themselves that they haven't got the energy to create all these beautiful family books. Sometimes they don't want to go there. It's too hard to think back and reminisce. So I think the sooner you can prepare those books, so if you are caring for someone at home, maybe care is an option in the specialist care in the future, put something like that together, because it helps so much when we know. So if someone is asking for a son, if we know a lot about that person, we can help find the best reaction and response.
That's great. And then a question for yourself here. Where are you based, and do you do any training sessions in care homes?
You could get in touch with Vida. We do all sorts of different trainings, and so yeah, we train with people who are outside. So you could get in touch with Vida Academy or Vida Academy, or come through to anyone at Vida, really. Vida Info, give us a ring. Yeah, I'll go anywhere. I'm quite happy. But we have an academy. People come here, so yeah, we do things like that.
That's brilliant. That's good. Sorry,
People
just
say nice things there. Thank you to everyone. That's nice things are flashing up on the screen. That's very kind. All the nice things that people are saying.
yeah, there's been some fantastic responses here. Yeah, maybe another situational one here. My mum, who has dementia and is 86 years old, went through a difficult time with my dad when she was in her 40s. Because of her dementia, she seems to be living in that time again. Is really quite verbally aggressive to my dad, who tries not to be upset. Is there any advice?
That's hard, isn't that? So hard when someone's on that page of trauma, and that's obviously going to be really hard for your dad as well. Yeah, that's a hard, off the top of my head, kind of hard stuff. I think to recognise how difficult that is, I think to make sure you're gentle with yourself, because you're in between all of this, and that's going to be hard for you to be in between something between your mum and dad. Maybe there's a bit of space, maybe to just kind of put a bit of space in. Is there a particular time of the day that happens? Is there something that happens that precedes that? To maybe pay attention to if it is after meals, is it before meals, is it when your mum is tired? I think maybe to look at all the circumstances around that sometimes there's a little trigger point. So to kind of look out for that and try and get in with something, and it might be that my mum needs some purpose at that moment, or a bit of distraction, or maybe is there something that my dad is doing that's pressing a little button. This isn't about blaming anyone, but I'm just thinking about, is there something that is being replayed? That's a very brief off the top of my head. I guess looking around the bigger picture.
That's great. A question from Angela. Advice, please, when the person becomes really loud and shouting and disruptive.
Yeah, that's a hard one, because sometimes we want to close that down, and if you're in a house, a domestic situation, that's when it's very hard. Here, we wouldn't particularly try to close that down. Here, we would see that it's an expression, and that's why specialist dementia care can look strange, because someone might be angry. We're making sure that no one is going to be hurt, but we sometimes have a lot of emotion bubbling up in us, and we have to release it. So being shouting, angry, it's something that we've all need at times. You know, again, in my kind of creative responses, sometimes if someone's banging on something, I'll bang on it with them, or I'll give them something to screw up or to pull. And sometimes, you know, scarf, I've done things with scarf, we've pulled scarves together, or we've scrunched up balls together, or we've, you know, I'm encouraging an outlet, but a safe outlet, because banging on a window in a house might be not so good. Banging on the windows here are different, they're very thick glass. But maybe redirect to a place that is safe. But I think trying to close down strong emotion is really hard because it's just going to come out in another way. Maybe again, it's about us thinking this is okay, that being calm ourselves with it.
That's really helpful. And I think just one more, which is bobbed in. If my 93-year-old mum is struggling to remember her brothers and childhood, also my father and their life together, what should I do? Stop trying to reminisce, ignore the past? Question mark.
You know the past, you know your mum and her family, and somewhere in your mum and in her family, she's lived that. It's all been in her, and maybe now it's the point that reminiscing might actually be just not the thing for her. Love is still love, and the names, the words might be different, but she's still your mum, and she's your mum at the place she's in dementia now with the brain damage that she's got. It's a hard one. It really, really is. That's a very painful situation. It really is. But she, the essence of her is still her, and she needs our love, more than ever, I'd say.
That's really, really helpful. I think the participants from the audience has been great. Thank you so much, Theresa. That has really been helpful once again. There's been a question or two about music and also puppetry. So like you say, that could be something we do on another time, because it's so important to, understand our dementia. I know from having it in our family. So just to wrap up, if that's okay, thank you everybody for sparing this time. I'm sure you found it very useful, as we have. And just a reminder on the screen there as to who we are. I've got a telephone number and email there. We will make this recording available. We'll send that out to all, so it'll be something that you can listen back on, because there was a lot of situational points touched on there. And in terms of resource, encourage you to jump onto our website. There's lots of free resources there in the OT section, so be that the seating ebook or some talks from Theresa in previous we used to do the train sessions. There's lots of information on there, and really encourage you to download and watch those. And it's all about sharing knowledge with each other and empowering each other better. So yeah, huge thanks again, Theresa. It's been a fantastic session. Really appreciate you coming on. And have a good afternoon all.